Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You disappear, you go completely silent, and just when he thinks he has you figured out, you come back stronger, calmer, more magnetic than ever. He expected you to crumble, to chase, to beg for his attention, but instead you've transformed into the one thing he never saw coming, the woman he can't predict, can't control, and can't forget. This is the move after no contact that flips the script, shocks his system, and makes him realize you are no longer the one waiting. You are the one choosing. And when you've gone no contact, you've already taken one of the boldest steps you can take in reclaiming your power. You've shown that you're not afraid to walk away, you're not willing to settle for crumbs, and you're strong enough to withhold your energy when it's not being appreciated. But here's the thing, no contact is not the end of the game. It's a reset button. It's not silence for the sake of silence, it's silence for the sake of growth, clarity, and creating a vacuum where he starts to feel the absence of you. And once that silence has done its work, once he begins to wonder, to think, to feel that undeniable tug of missing you, that's when you hold the card he doesn't expect. And because here's what most people do after no contact. They rush back in. They've been dying to hear from him. They've been waiting for his text. They've been itching for the moment his name pops up on their phone. And when it finally does, they collapse into it. They give him everything at once, all the validation, all the comfort, all the reassurance he was craving while you were gone. And just like that, the mystery is gone. The tension dissolves. The power you built by stepping back evaporates in an instant. But that's not going to be you. You're going to play this differently. And when he finally reaches out, and trust me, if there was real attraction there, if there was real connection, he will reach out. You don't give him what he expects. He expects you to be excited, to be available, to show relief that he finally remembered you. He expects you to fill the silence with enthusiasm because that's what most people do. Instead, your move is calm, grounded, measured. You don't rush, you don't fawn, you don't suddenly spill your heart into his inbox. You respond with a presence that says, I'm good, my life has been moving, I've been thriving, and I'm not just waiting for you. And that energy alone will shock him because silence is powerful, but what really gets into his head is when the silence ends and he sees you've changed. He thought you were paused while he was away. He thought life stopped for you, that you were secretly waiting on him. But then he comes back and realizes you've evolved. You're busier, happier, more magnetic. You've poured into yourself. You're sharper in conversation, lighter in energy, stronger in boundaries. That's the move he won't expect. And it's not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to forget. And you become unforgettable when you've used that time of no contact, not to sulk, not to spiral, not to obsess over what he's doing, but to actually grow into a more irresistible version of yourself. Think about it. How many people waste no contact as just a waiting game? They spend weeks or months refreshing their phone, checking social media, wondering if he's missing them. But the real winners use no contact as fuel. They work out more. They dive into their passions. They expand their social circles. They remind themselves of who they were before him and who they can become without him. They walk into rooms with energy that says, I am whole with or without you. That's the magnetic shift. And so when he does send that message, hey, how have you been? You don't jump into giving here and what he wants. You keep it light. You keep it centered on you. You're not cold, but you're not desperate either. You give him a glimpse of the person you've become, but you don't hand him all the access he once had. That limited access is intoxicating. It forces him to earn his way back in, and it shows him that your world is rich with or without his presence. And if he tries to step back in casually, hoping everything goes back to how it was before, this is where your unexpected move comes in. You don't let him. You shift the standard. You don't entertain half-hearted effort, breadcrumbing or inconsistent behavior. Instead of saying yes to a last-minute, what are you doing tonight text, you show that your time is valuable. You show that if he wants a spot in your life now, he has to step up, he has to commit, he has to align with the person you've become. That's what flips the dynamic completely. And because, let's be honest, silence on its own isn't enough to keep someone invested. It can spark curiosity, But if when he comes back you fall into old patterns, the story just repeats itself. The real magic happens when your actions after no contact show that you've raised your standards. You've created a new baseline. He can't just walk back in and pick up where he left off. He has to rise to meet you where you are now. And picture this. He thought you'd be sitting around wondering about him, but instead he finds out you've been traveling, you've been going out with friends, you've been glowing up in every sense of the word. He thought he'd return to the same dynamic, but now you're not over-investing, you're not chasing, you're not clinging. You're simply living. And nothing is more unexpected, more magnetic, more attractive than a woman who has recentered her own life and is unapologetically flourishing. And that's when the tables turn. Suddenly he's not the prize anymore, you are. He's no longer in control of the pace, you are. He's no longer the one deciding when and how things happen, you are. And the reason you're in control isn't because you manipulated the situation, but because you grew. You used the silence as transformation. And when transformation meets opportunity, you create a shift he won't be able to ignore. And so remember, the move he won't expect after no contact isn't about some clever line or pretending you don't care or trying to make him jealous. It's about becoming so magnetic in your own right that when he does return, he's faced with the reality that you're not who you were when he left. You're stronger, more grounded, more radiant. And if he wants to be part of your story now, he has to show up differently because you're not lowering yourself back down to meet him. You're holding your new standard and inviting him to rise. And that's the shift. That's the move that turns the silence into power, the waiting into growth, and the unexpected into unforgettable. And then here's the truth most people don't realize. When you've been silent, he doesn't just miss your voice. He misses the role you played in his life. He misses the comfort, the reassurance, the attention, the validation. That silence highlights how much he relied on you for those things, even if he never admitted it. And the mistake so many women make is that the second he pops back up, they hand those things over like free samples, as if he didn't just vanish or fail to show up when he should have. But your move is to withhold the instant gratification he's used to, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Because when you give too much too soon, you erase the very tension that made him come back in the first place. And instead you make space for him to prove himself. That's the move he won't see coming. He expects the easy road back, the open arms, the quick forgiveness. But what he doesn't expect is a woman who knows her worth so well that she hasn't rushed to prove it to him. You've already proven it to yourself during no contact. You've built confidence. You've rebuilt your life. You've shown yourself that you are capable of moving forward without leaning on him. That strength radiates now. And when he comes knocking, he has to feel the difference. And it's subtle but powerful. It's in the way you answer his text without over-explaining. It's in the way you don't scramble your schedule to accommodate him. It's in the way you keep your conversations light and enjoyable without diving into the heavy emotional topics he expects you to unload. He thought silence was the hardest part, but what really unnerves him is when you break the silence with a version of you he's never met before. Confident, centered, glowing. That's where the intrigue builds. And people crave what feels rare. And when you show up after no contact with a new energy, you've made yourself rare. You're not just the woman who used to laugh at all his jokes, stay up late waiting for his call, or tolerate his mixed signals. You're now the woman who carries herself like someone who knows she is valuable real estate, someone who doesn't rent herself out cheaply, someone who can welcome him into her world but doesn't need him there to make it whole. That's the unexpected shift, and it shakes him at his core. And then here's the beautiful part. When you do this, you're not just creating a reaction in him, you're reinforcing a truth in yourself. You're affirming to yourself that you're capable of setting a higher standard. You're showing yourself that you can handle his return without losing the progress you made in his absence. And that builds a new kind of confidence, the kind that doesn't waver depending on whether he texts, calls, or shows up. That's the real prize of no contact, not just making him miss you, but reminding yourself that you can survive and thrive regardless of his presence. And now imagine this. He sends a message after weeks or months of silence, Something casual, maybe even lazy. Hey, what's up? He's testing the waters, expecting you to light up and pour your energy into reconnecting. But instead of rushing to prove you're still there, you keep your response simple, pleasant, and brief. You don't mirror his effort because your energy is not for the bare minimum. You set the tone, and that tone says, if you want access to me, you have to do better than this. And this is where men either rise or retreat. Some will fade because they were only interested in having the upper hand. But the ones who truly value you will step up. They'll realize that the woman they left behind has grown into someone who requires more. And here's the kicker. He won't expect you to actually enforce that standard. Most people talk about raising their standards, but very few actually live them. When you live it, when you calmly let go of low effort and reward real effort, you change the entire dynamic. And it doesn't stop with how you respond to him. It's also in how you show up in the world. If you've been glowing up during no contact, let that shine. Share the new experiences you've had, not to make him jealous, but to show that your life is expansive. When you walk into a room, hold yourself like someone who belongs there, who doesn't need to be chosen because she has already chosen herself. That confidence doesn't just affect him, it affects everyone around you. And ironically, it makes you even more desirable because people are drawn to those who don't cling, who don't chase, who don't beg to be loved. And think about the psychology of it. Attraction thrives on challenge, not games, not manipulation, but genuine challenge. When he sees that you're not automatically folding back into his life, that you're not just waiting in the wings for him to, decide when you're worthy of attention, it creates a challenge he didn't anticipate. He has to re-earn you. He has to court you again. He has to bring more to the table. And whether he rises to that or not is his choice. But the point is, you've set the stage where you are the one being pursued, not the one doing the pursuing. And this is why the move after no contact is so critical. If you handle it like everyone else, you lose all the power you built. But if you handle it with grace, strength, and standards, you amplify the effect of the silence. You make him realize that the silence wasn't just absence. It was transformation. It wasn't just you disappearing. It was you upgrading. And now he has to decide if he's ready to meet the new version of you. And don't underestimate how impactful this is. He might have thought about you during no contact, maybe even missed you. But what will truly make him sit up and pay attention is realizing that he can't just waltz back in and expect the old version of you. The unexpected move is that you're not available in the same way anymore. You've shifted, and now he has to shift too. And even deeper than that, this isn't just about making him want you more. It's about creating a life where you are wanted because of the value you naturally radiate, not because you begged for it, chased it, or clung to it. When you show up this way, men notice. They feel the difference. They sense that you are not operating from scarcity, but from abundance, and abundance is irresistible. And so the next time you think about no contact, don't just think of it as a strategy to make him miss you. Think of it as the foundation for this unexpected move. Think of it as the fertile ground where you planted seeds of growth, confidence, and strength. And when he returns, don't hand him the old script. Hand him a brand new one where you are the lead, you set the pace, and you decide who gets to be part of your story. And because the real power isn't in making him wonder where you went, the real power is in making him realize that when you came back, you were no longer the same woman he left behind. And that's the move he won't expect. And when you understand this, you begin to see that the entire dynamic shifts not because of what you say to him, but because of what you show him through your actions. Words can be charming, they can be persuasive, they can even be manipulative, but energy doesn't lie. When you've gone through no contact and come out on the other side stronger, your energy tells the story without you needing to explain a thing. He senses it in the pauses, in the way you don't rush to respond, in the way you don't overcompensate, in the way you don't bend yourself to fit into his world. That energy is the silent move he never anticipated. And he may think he knows you. He may think he can predict how you'll behave when he resurfaces. But when you've used your silence as transformation, he meets a version of you he didn't plan for. That's when curiosity kicks in. That's when he begins to wonder, what changed? What happened during that time? Why does she feel so different now? That wonder is powerful because curiosity is the birthplace of desire. When he realizes you are not the predictable person he once took for granted, he becomes invested again. Not because you chased, but because you shifted. And here's where the move becomes even more effective. You don't give him clarity too quickly. He doesn't get all the answers right away. He doesn't get to step back in and immediately feel like he has you figured out. Instead, you allow mystery to live. You reveal pieces of your life, but not the whole picture. You share moments, but not every detail. You let him see that there's more to discover, more to earn, more to uncover. That unpredictability drives him wild because what he doesn't expect is a woman who no longer hands him everything on a silver platter. He expects you to reassure him, to soothe his ego, to confirm that you've been waiting. But when you don't, when you hold your ground and keep your essence intact, he is forced to lean in. And then this is where your standards come alive in practice. Because it's not just about how you respond, it's about what you no longer tolerate. Before, you may have entertained half effort, you may have been grateful for breadcrumbs, for sporadic texts, for empty promises. But now, after your silence, you don't operate from scarcity. You know there is abundance in the world, you know your worth doesn't come from his attention, and so you treat yourself like the prize. That shift forces him to see you differently. He has no choice but to recalibrate his own effort, because anything less than intentional pursuit will be met with indifference. And this is the part he never expects, the calm indifference. Not anger, not resentment, not bitterness, but calm strength. You're not out to prove a point. You're not out to punish him. You're not playing games. You're simply living with a new standard, and that standard doesn't bend. That calm presence is intoxicating because it's rare. Most people operate out of emotional reactivity, clinging, chasing, exploding, demanding. When you don't, when you stand tall and steady, you separate yourself from the crowd. That's when he realizes you are not just another option. And you'll notice something fascinating here. The more you hold this energy, the more the dynamic flips. Suddenly he starts to invest more. He calls, he plans, he tries harder. He wants to know what you're doing, who you're with, what's been happening in your life. He starts to fear losing his place because he can sense that your life is bigger than him now. That fear of loss, combined with the allure of mystery, makes him chase in ways he never did before. And the irony, you're not even trying to make him chase. You're simply living in alignment with your worth. And that in itself creates the magnetism. And now imagine this in real time. He calls and you're busy, not because you're playing a role, but because you genuinely are. You've filled your life with things that light you up, your friendships, your career, your passions, your health, your adventures. You no longer sit around waiting for him to dictate when your life begins. Your life is already happening, and he has to fit into it, not the other way around. That reversal of roles catches him off guard because he expected to be the center of your attention. Now he realizes he has to work to earn a seat at your table. And that is the essence of the unexpected move. You've become someone who cannot be taken for granted. He doesn't expect you to be harder to access. He doesn't expect you to have more going on. He doesn't expect you to be the one he feels slightly intimidated by now. But that's the reality you've created, and it's not a facade, it's not a temporary tactic. It's genuine evolution. He can feel the difference, and it forces him to rise if he wants to keep up. But let's take it deeper. This move isn't just about him, it's about you stepping into a new identity. The silence gave you space to detach from the patterns that once trapped you. It gave you perspective on how much of yourself you were giving away without reciprocation. It gave you the chance to prove to yourself that your world doesn't collapse without him. And when you came out on the other side, you carried that truth with you. That's why you don't cave when he returns. That's why you don't drop everything to entertain him, because you've already lived through the silence and discovered your strength. And that strength is the anchor. It holds you steady when old emotions try to pull you back. It reminds you that no matter how charming his words are, no matter how much you missed him, you are not the same person anymore. And that's what shocks him most, your evolution. He thought time would freeze you in place, but instead time liberated you. And then this is where your standards come alive in practice, because it's not just about how you respond, it's about what you no longer tolerate. Before, you may have entertained half effort, you may have been grateful for breadcrumbs, for sporadic texts, for empty promises. But now, after your silence, you don't operate from scarcity. You know there is abundance in the world, you know your worth doesn't come from his attention, and so you treat yourself like the prize. That shift forces him to see you differently. He has no choice but to recalibrate his own effort, because anything less than intentional pursuit will be met with indifference. And this is the part he never expects, the calm indifference. Not anger, not resentment, not bitterness, but calm strength. You're not out to prove a point. You're not out to punish him. You're not playing games. You're simply living with a new standard, and that standard doesn't bend. That calm presence is intoxicating because it's rare. Most people operate out of emotional reactivity, clinging, chasing, exploding, demanding. When you don't, when you stand tall and steady, you separate yourself from the crowd. That's when he realizes you are not just another option. And you'll notice something fascinating here. The more you hold this energy, the more the dynamic flips. Suddenly he starts to invest more. He calls, he plans, he tries harder. He wants to know what you're doing, who you're with, what's been happening in your life. He starts to fear losing his place because he can sense that your life is bigger than him now. That fear of loss, combined with the allure of mystery, makes him chase in ways he never did before. And the irony, you're not even trying to make him chase. You're simply living in alignment with your worth. And that in itself creates the magnetism. And now imagine this in real time. He calls and you're busy, not because you're playing a role, but because you genuinely are. You've filled your life with things that light you up, your friendships, your career, your passions, your health, your adventures. You no longer sit around waiting for him to dictate when your life begins. Your life is already happening, and he has to fit into it, not the other way around. That reversal of roles catches him off guard because he expected to be the center of your attention. Now he realizes he has to work to earn a seat at your table. And that is the essence of the unexpected move. You've become someone who cannot be taken for granted. He doesn't expect you to be harder to access. He doesn't expect you to have more going on. He doesn't expect you to be the one he feels slightly intimidated by now. But that's the reality you've created, and it's not a facade, it's not a temporary tactic. It's genuine evolution. He can feel the difference, and it forces him to rise if he wants to keep up. But let's take it deeper. This move isn't just about him, it's about you stepping into a new identity. The silence gave you space to detach from the patterns that once trapped you. It gave you perspective on how much of yourself you were giving away without reciprocation. It gave you the chance to prove to yourself that your world doesn't collapse without him. And when you came out on the other side, you carried that truth with you. That's why you don't cave when he returns. That's why you don't drop everything to entertain him, because you've already lived through the silence and discovered your strength. And that strength is the anchor. It holds you steady when old emotions try to pull you back. It reminds you that no matter how charming his words are, no matter how much you missed him, you are not the same person anymore. And that's what shocks him most, your evolution. He thought time would freeze you in place, but instead time liberated you. He thought silence was a pause, but instead silence was a catalyst. And now he comes back expecting the old version, only to meet the upgraded one. And then the beauty is you don't even need to announce it. You don't need to declare how much you've grown. You don't need to list all the ways you've changed. He feels it in your presence, in your boundaries, in your choices. He feels it in the way you don't lean too hard, in the way you don't rush the connection, in the way you hold your space. That unspoken evolution speaks louder than any words ever could. And so when he sits across from you or hears your voice again or sees your smile, there's a shift he can't ignore. He remembers how things used to be, but he sees that they're no longer that way. He feels the contrast and it unsettles him because the truth is most men expect to return to a familiar script. They expect you to act the same, to play the same role, to keep the same dynamics. But when the script has changed, when you're playing a new role, when the rules of engagement are different, it forces him to step up or step out. And then that is the move that holds all the power. forcing him to decide whether he's ready to meet you at this new level without you bending down to meet him where he left you. That's where the unexpected becomes undeniable. And here's the part that makes this move so magnetic. You're not waiting for his reaction to validate whether or not you've grown. Your evolution is not dependent on whether he notices it, acknowledges it, or applauds it. You've done the work because it was necessary for you. That's what makes it authentic, and authenticity is what makes it powerful. When a woman grows simply to impress someone else, it shows, it feels performative. But when she grows because she refused to stay stuck, because she chose to honor her own worth, because she knew she deserved more, from life, that energy radiates in a way no act can duplicate. And so when he comes back, the unexpected move is that you don't need him to recognize your worth. You already do. That self-certainty is magnetic because it's rare. Most people walk into situations desperately hoping for validation. They're silently begging to be chosen. But when you walk in already chosen by yourself, that changes the entire atmosphere. He feels it. He notices that you're not grasping, you're not bending, you're not trying to extract value from him. You're simply standing in your own value. That presence alone is a move he won't see coming. And now let's talk about how this looks in the little moments, because it's often the smallest behaviors that tell the biggest story. He might text late at night, expecting you to reply instantly like before. But now you're not glued to your phone. You have your own routine, your own boundaries, your own priorities. You reply on your time, when it feels right, not when he demands it. And the moment he senses you're not hanging on his every word, the dynamic shifts. That unpredictability stirs something inside him because you're no longer the constant he can take for granted. You're the variable he has to pursue. Or maybe he tries to test you with half measures, inviting you to something last minute, assuming you'll say yes out of excitement to see him again. But now you have plans, commitments, a full life. You don't drop everything to accommodate him. You let him see that your time is valuable. And if he wants access to it, he has to plan. He has to prioritize. He has to make real effort. That boundary alone separates you from the woman you used to be. And it forces him to rise to meet the version of you that doesn't settle for scraps anymore. And what makes this so effective is that you're not punishing him. You're not trying to manipulate him. You're simply living differently. Your life has expanded beyond him, and that expansion is the move he won't expect, because he counted on being the center of your universe, and now he realizes he isn't. That realization creates both fear and attraction. Fear because he knows he could lose you. Attraction because independence is magnetic. The combination of those emotions is what makes him chase harder than he has before. But here's the deeper truth. You're no longer chasing his chase. You're not trying to orchestrate his behavior. You're not strategizing every move to see how he reacts. You've released the need for control. And ironically, that release is what creates the strongest pull. Because people can feel when you're trying to control them, even subtly. They sense when your every action is a test, a tactic, a ploy. That energy pushes them away. But when your actions come from genuine self-respect and natural boundaries, there's nothing for him to resist. He simply has to decide if he's capable of showing up at the level you now require. And this is where the unexpected move deepens. You've stopped waiting for him to lead. You've taken ownership of your life in a way that shows you are the leader of your own story. That doesn't mean you don't want connection. That doesn't mean you don't want love. It simply means love is not the prerequisite for your fulfillment. That realization is a breakthrough because it removes the desperation that so many people carry into their relationships. You're not there to be saved. You're there to be met. And if he can't meet you, you'll keep moving forward without regret. And imagine how that feels from his perspective. He thought silence would make you needy. He thought your absence was just a phase, a temporary tactic. But instead, silence forged strength in you. When he re-enters the picture, he's not walking into the same dynamic. He's walking into something elevated. And that's where he has to confront his own behavior. He has to reflect on whether he's willing to put in the work, whether he's capable of giving more than he did before, whether he's truly ready to match the energy of the person you've become. And then the beauty is you don't have to demand it outright. You don't need to lecture, to warn, to set ultimatums. Your standards are evident in the way you live. Your boundaries are visible in your choices. Your value is clear in how you carry yourself. He sees it, he feels it, and he knows instinctively that if he doesn't adjust, he'll lose you. That silent accountability is far more powerful than any words you could say. And this is the move he won't expect, that you're no longer negotiating your worth. You're not trying to convince him that you're good enough. You're not trying to win him over. You're not proving yourself. You've flipped the script entirely. Now it's about whether he can prove himself to you, whether he can show that he deserves a place in the life you've built, whether he can keep up with the woman you've become. That's a move so few make because it requires real courage to stop begging and start choosing. And that courage builds something even bigger, peace. Because once you've stepped into this energy, you're no longer terrified of what happens if he doesn't measure up. You're no longer paralyzed by the fear of losing him. You know that if he doesn't rise, someone else will. You know that if he walks away, it's not rejection, it's alignment. You're free from the chains of scarcity, and that freedom makes you untouchable. And the irony is that the less you need him, the more he feels the need to show up. The less you cling, the more he chases. The less you try to convince, the more he tries to convince you. That reversal is not a trick. It's not a game. It's the natural byproduct of owning your worth. And when you own it so fully that your life is rich, fulfilling, and exciting without him, that's when he realizes just how lucky he would be to be let back in. But even then, you're not racing to let him back. You're measured, you're intentional, you're watching, listening, observing. You're making sure his actions align with his words. You're letting time reveal consistency instead of falling for intensity. You're patient enough to see if he's truly ready for the new standard you've set. That patience is another unexpected move because he's banking on urgency. He thinks you'll leap at the chance to reconcile, but instead you calmly let things unfold. That patience communicates something he can't ignore. You're not afraid to lose him. And then that's the ultimate move he won't expect. Fearlessness. Not the loud, boastful kind of fearlessness, but the quiet, grounded kind. The kind that says, I'll be fine no matter what happens. That's the kind of energy that can't be faked because it comes from lived experience. You've already gone without him. You've already built yourself up in the silence. You've already learned to thrive without his presence. That's why when he returns, you're not shaken. You're steady, you're whole, you're already complete. And when a woman embodies that, everything changes. He can't rely on old patterns. He can't lean on old assumptions. He can't get away with the same shortcuts. He has to adapt. He has to grow. He has to meet her at her new level or risk losing her altogether. That's the pressure he never expected to feel. And it all stems from the move you made after no contact, the move of standing in your power, owning your growth, and refusing to shrink back into the version of you he once knew.